part of that became the neurofeedback clinic, which a colleague had shared with me what he was doing in another county here in Southern California, helping children who were struggling to learn how to read, and that this system was making a difference in their lives. Set up a dual track. It's like, let's work with children with ADHD and let's work with veterans with PTSD and let's see what happens. And so we just opened it up. It was a pilot project. And what started happening is the phone started ringing.
Yeah.
So we have community parents and veterans and folks coming in, and suddenly we were getting results with this. People's lives were improving. Sometimes figuring out what is going on, though, can be a relief for some people. It's not that the label necessarily does it, but when they have a better understanding of what's really going on, in other words, we find the root cause of what's happening, that's what makes the difference. It's not so much the label, because some of these labels can be very, in a lack of a better word, debilitating, like what you're describing. So people get stuck with that. They sometimes feel hopeless and helpless. Well, the what and how I describe it is probably different, which is why I really wrote the book, which is to change the narrative. I really want this narrative to be expanded beyond where we have been with these traditional interpretations and views and traditional interventions, because I don't think it's worked. If it had been doing great, we wouldn't be where we are today. So something isn't working. Some of those interventions, they're not working. And as most of us in the professional field know, when they changed up the DSM-5, almost anyone can qualify now for ADHD. When you read those descriptors, it's like, how many billion people are there on the planet? And I think how many billion could qualify under that diagnostic criteria. So it's kind of a double-edged sword here, because we've got this criteria that almost anyone can qualify under now. And we do seem to have a preponderance of an explosion almost of people who can't concentrate, people who can't focus. So do we have these external factors creating more of attention problems? I think we could check that box pretty easily.
Yeah.
Yes. Do we have a diagnostic criteria that almost anyone in the world can be swept into? I think we have to check that box as well. Obviously, the cases that don't hit my office are the ones perhaps the medication's working for. So I can't speak to that. Okay.
Right.
But what I can speak to is that for the folks that have come into my clinics, it either hasn't worked, they don't want to stay on it, or they don't want to get on it. And so we're looking for the alternatives. And in my book, I did some dive in to the medication side effects, because I really did want to help parents understand there are some pros and cons to that. There are cases where this works. Most of the complaints have been that when the medications wear off, the behaviors come back. So what we've done is put a Band-Aid on something, it seems like, because it doesn't really get rid of it. It just numbs it down. Some people say my son or child has turned into a zombie. I can't stand it. There's all of these things have been said to me. So I think the key to really what we're looking at is trying to find the solutions that last. When we run this assessment, it takes 20 minutes, a computer-based assessment. We were able to get a 15-page report out of this. And when we go through this, when I literally go through this with parents and adults, it changes everything. It changes the dynamic, because suddenly we have the language that we can now all agree on. It's like, these are the behaviors, this is what's happening, this is the impact. And then everything's kind of lined up. And suddenly parents realize, oh my gosh, I don't have a bad kid. It's like, no, you do not. Yeah. You do not have a, quote, bad kid. You do not have a child who is just willfully misbehaving and not following instructions all the time. That isn't what's going on here. He can't remember. She can't focus on this. And this isn't hearing, and it isn't vision. It's literally processing. And when we find it, there's something we can do to help train the brain with that and strengthen that.